Hey guys, welcome to this channel, and I'm so glad that you clicked on this video, and I hope that these 10 tips that I wish I knew before studying abroad are helpful for you. So just a little bit of background, my name is Courtney. I am studying abroad at the University of Glasgow in Scotland, and I'm getting my master's abroad, so technically I'm enrolled in the university as an international student, but it's very similar to studying abroad as an undergraduate student with affiliation with the university in the US. I also want to say that my advice is specific to Scotland. I think you could apply this a lot more broadly to the UK, but I definitely can't speak for other European countries, so I just wanted to put that out there. I hope it's helpful, but this is just based on what I know. These are 10 things that I really wish I knew before studying abroad. I looked at a lot of different videos and I had to pick through ones that I thought were helpful, but hopefully this compilation will be very beneficial for you. I've broken it down into 3 different sections: logistics, tips, and advice. So logistics are going to be more about visas and accommodation, transportation, things like that. Tips are going to be around things like food, water, Amazon orders, and advice is going to be more personal things that I would have liked to communicate to myself that I think are important for you to know if you're open to listening. So I don't want to make this video for myself, I want to make it for you. I hope that it is incredibly helpful for you, and without further ado, let's get into the video. Number 1 is visas. This process is going to look different for every single person. I actually didn't graduate until May of 2022, so I couldn't apply until I got my diploma in the mail, which at least at my university took over a month, even though I tried to expedite the process. So I couldn't start my visa application until I had that document. I'm not going to go too far into this just because my visa actually ended up being very delayed and it got lost in the system. So it was one of those horror stories of the visa not working out how you really hoped it would. My broader tip is just start as absolutely soon as possible and to be able to schedule your BRP appointment as soon as possible as well, because once you start your BRP, that's kind of when everything else in the application starts. So you can definitely fill out the form online, which is very important, but really try and get that BRP appointment at the beginning and out of the way so that your application can begin to process. Also, just a last note on the visa, if yours is delayed, if you have problems, and like mine, it was lost in the system, unfortunately, don't be afraid to email and call. It actually costs every minute that you're on the phone with them, and it does cost to send an email, which is incredibly unfortunate, but it is definitely worth calling and getting in contact with them. I know it's a little chunk of money to put down just for a phone call because of international fees or for emails, but it's definitely worth it, because if I had not reached out, they would not have reached out to me and I wouldn't have known that my visa was lost in the system. Number 2, apply for accommodation as soon as possible. This tip is really important, especially depending on which university you go to. So at the University of Glasgow this last year, they actually had to turn students down who were previously accepted just because there was no accommodation available for them. So as soon as you get your acceptance and as soon as you are confident that you will be attending and accept your acceptance letter, apply for accommodation. This can be through university accommodation, outside student accommodation, or your own private flat. Whatever you think is best, definitely research your options and see which one's going to suit you better and also be the most affordable option for you. Either way, definitely go ahead and start submitting your applications, especially if it's at the university itself, for accommodation there. This is super important just to secure that you will have a place to live, because as I said, in my case, people were actually turned down because they weren't able to find accommodation near the university because it had all sold out. So weigh your options. I ended up staying in student accommodation, not affiliated with the university itself directly, but just student accommodation through other universities nearby as well. It ended up working out really well, and I was able to choose from a couple of different options of how many flat meets I wanted. And so I did that, I think, in May of 2022 at the end of it, and that was definitely pushing the lines between being able to get something and then not finding anything at all. If I would have waited even 1 or 2 weeks later, I think almost everything would have filled up. So get your accommodation as soon as possible. Number 3, phone plans. Some people have international phone plans and that's perfectly fine. I did not though, and I think the most realistic and best option, especially to get bang for your buck, is to just go ahead and get a SIM card in the UK. One thing I wish I knew before going though is that you do have to completely purchase your phone, the phone itself, before leaving the US to be able to unlock it to put a new SIM card inside of the phone. So for instance, if you bought your phone from Verizon, you're going to have to actually purchase the physical phone itself and finish those payments before you can take the Verizon SIM out of it and put in a European one. So unfortunately, because I got my phone the year before, the payments were not finished on it, but I had to complete it, or else I would have had to get an international plan or a new phone in the UK. So just be aware of that, because that will be an additional cost if you don't foresee that happening. So just include it in your plans and the cost it's going to take to be able to study abroad. But when it comes to phone plans, I know there are quite a few popular options. One of them I think is called O2. One of them is Voxy, which I see promoted a lot here. There's quite a few other ones that are even more popular than those. I personally have giffgaff, and the way that I went about getting my SIM card, I believe that you can get them in airports, but actually my accommodation had them here. So I just went into the front lobby and it was very convenient. They had it, and you can just take a little push pin and insert it into your phone to pop your own SIM card out and put the new one in. So that process was pretty seamless, but I highly recommend giffgaff. I obviously have no affiliation with them, but what I love about giffgaff is that you just purchase the number of gigabytes you want on a monthly basis. You don't have to buy an extended plan. And so I was purchasing 5 gigabytes a month, and they actually emailed me after a couple months and said, hey girl, you're only using 1 gigabyte, so why don't you downgrade to our 2 gigabyte plan and pay less money? So I believe I pay £6 a month for 2 gigabytes, and that's perfectly enough. I really appreciated that in a company, and that is what I generally pay for my SIM. And that's going to look different for everybody depending on how much data you use, but what's really nice is that a lot of companies will have free EU roaming, so you can go about your travel adventures and your time studying abroad and there won't be a problem. Number 4, exchange rates. This is so important and something that I knew about before but didn't necessarily factor in, and I wish I would have known that this is incredibly important. So if you are going from USD or the US dollar to GBP or Great British pounds, you'll have to know the difference between the two. And I'm not talking about, you need to know the exact amount, because that's going to fluctuate daily. You can actually track that online. But it is incredibly important to know how much the USD and your dollar is worth compared to the pound, or if you're in a different country, the euro, because this is going to be incredibly influential in your purchases, especially big purchases such as tuition when you're paying that, and rent or accommodation when you are paying that. So if you end up paying that in February and the US dollar is actually down, you're going to get a lot less bang for your buck, as opposed to going and paying in January if you had looked before, when the pound and the dollar were roughly worth closer to an equal amount. It's worth noting though that the pound is worth more than the dollar, and the euro is worth more than the dollar, though the euro and the dollar are much closer together when it comes to value. The pound and the dollar are not as much. So I've paid for things in September much differently than I have in February. Number 5, transportation. So I know a big culture shock or change is that a lot of people coming from the US are very used to having their own vehicle to be able to drive around in, and you have to get used to public transportation here. So things like buses, trains, subways, those types of transportation take a little bit of getting used to really understand the system itself. But my advice is just being open to going on transportation that you hadn't previously. So I know I talk to a lot of people who are scared because they've never taken the subway, but they've taken buses numerous times before, so they feel more comfortable doing that, but it ends up taking them way longer to get to where they need to go. I'm very guilty of that. I very rarely take the train just because I haven't needed to a lot in my time here, so I prefer to actually go by bus places. But just be open, especially when you first get here, to trying out different transportation options. And also a tip, if you live in Scotland, is that if you're under the age of 22, you can actually go on buses for free if you apply for a specific card. I don't have exact details on that because I'm actually 22, so I am just a year shy of qualifying for that. But just be aware and look into different transportation cards that you can get if you qualify as a student. I believe you can get Oyster cards if you are like in London studying abroad. I'm not sure how that works, but just be aware of your options and money saving opportunities. Number 6 is food. I just want to very lightly touch on grocery stores and then food itself. So when it comes to grocery stores, obviously there are going to be different chains than what you are probably used to. So I would be open to trying different chains, but something that was very shocking to me when I came is that a lot of people shop for one day or just a few days. So it was very baffling to me when I went into numerous grocery stores and they didn't have buggies. Some of them would have baskets, but really you're not meant to get a massive quantity of food to bring home. I want to preface this by saying that I do live in basically city center, so this is going to be very different depending on where you study abroad and the location of it. I do live in a city, so I'm sure this is very influential. One thing though, this is just a bonus tip I found really helpful, is now I will order on Amazon Fresh if I have bigger things to get, like if I'm trying to get sparkling water or just heavy items like that, because otherwise I have to walk 3/4 of a mile back to my flat with everything I got from the grocery store. So that is really nice. If Amazon Fresh is available in your area, then definitely utilize them if you can. It's great to shop and support local though. So I'm just saying that when it comes to simplicity and ease, if you can get your heavier items on Amazon Fresh, that might be a bit easier. When it comes to the actual food itself though, something that was really hard for me when I came here that I did not know is that there is no coffee creamer. Now this could be very location specific to Scotland and the area I live in, but you are not going to find Coffee Mate liquid creamer. You're not going to find your Starbucks liquid creamer. It's not gonna happen. As a coffee addict, that was very hard for me to see. Of course, they have things like Starbucks here, so you can go to restaurants and you can get these flavored syrups in your coffee, but as for what they sell, they don't even have half and half here. You're just gonna have to settle with cream or just milk in there. You can also buy syrups, but you're not going to find a traditional coffee creamer like you would find 100 different options in the States. It'll be okay. You'll survive it, but just a heads up, there's no coffee creamer like in the States. Number 7, Amazon and Primark can be your best friend. As I said before, it is fantastic to shop and support local businesses, but if you are moving from abroad and you have a very quick turnaround, I highly recommend ordering a lot of things for your accommodation, just basic things like sheets, comforters, pillows, on Amazon, or right when you get here to go to Primark, because that is going to be the destination and Amazon is going to be the online destination to be able to get more affordable products that you just need plentiful amounts and you kind of need all at once when you first get here. You don't need to go overboard and purchase every single thing that you want in your room from either of those two stores, but I ordered on Amazon and I'll insert a picture here of what it looked like when I got to Glasgow and all of the boxes that I had, but it was super helpful to unpack it, to have pillows there, to have sheets there, and just to be able to sleep my first night. It was nice to have those items already there. So I would recommend that method unless you're gonna have plenty of time once you arrive in your study abroad country. And on that note, Primark is kind of like a mix between a Walmart and Target, maybe. I don't know what a right comparison would be, but it's really nice and very affordable, and it has clothing items, it has home decor, everything like that. So it's actually a really nice store, very affordable, and a lot of fun if you're not from the UK and you go to Primark. Also, I'm sorry if it has gotten darker and the lighting is worse. I think some clouds just covered up the sun. Number 8, and my last tip, is about BRPs. You will get your BRP card when you arrive in your country. And again, I am talking about Scotland and I think the UK as a whole, so your country might look different if you're studying abroad somewhere else, but you will get your biometrics residency permit, BRP card, basically saying that you did arrive in the country, they have seen your visa, and they do know that you're at your university, and so then they approve it that you're able to stay with your student visa for whatever the period is. So whether it's a year, year and a half, however long your visa is meant to be for, essentially they just approve it and then they give you an identification card. So what I want to note about this is keep up with this card. It is very important. Anytime that you travel outside of your country, you will need it to get back in. So if you're flying out to the States for Christmas or something like that, you'll need to show your BRP card when you enter back into Scotland or whatever country you are flying into. Now, a lot of airports have these digital options where you go and you just scan your passport before entering in, and you don't actually have somebody sit there and stamp you into the country. You might not need to show your BRP card, but it's really important that you have it because sometimes they will not let you in when you don't have it. And by sometimes, I mean that they probably won't let you in if you don't have your BRP card, and you might be forced to apply for a temporary visa, and that's just a really, really long process. So keep up with that BRP. It's all good, you don't have to stress about it, but just have it with you when you travel. Now moving into part 3, which is advice. Number 9 is that it is a gift to be able to visit a different country and experience a different culture. Be prepared for cultural changes, and also be prepared for accepting that your way and what you know might not be the right way or the only way of doing things. You're experiencing a different culture, so be very respectful of that. I know that you guys already know this for sure, but I think simple sentences like saying, "Oh, you guys drive on the wrong side of the road." That's a really common one to say, but it's not the wrong side of the road if you're used to driving on the right and they drive on the left. It's easier and I think better to say, "Oh, you drive on a different side of the road than what I'm used to." So I think going into a different country and labeling things as wrong is definitely not right. It is a gift that those people have opened up themselves to allow you into their culture, allow you into their city, that you have been approved in this visa process. So I think just taking on the role of a learner is really important. So I think just being open and respectful of the people and culture that you're going to, and not labeling things as just wrong, but simply different, is really effective. And I think also if you're going to a different country and you're speaking a different language, like if you're studying abroad in Italy or France, if they decide to speak English with you, that's very gracious on their part because that is not their national language. So we have definitely all made mistakes while studying abroad of just projecting what we believe is like right onto other countries, but I think just being aware, listening, and being a learner is really important when going into a different country. Number 10 is travel. I know with my program specifically, we have so much homework because I am getting an English literature degree. We have to read all the time. Something first semester that I kind of wish I did differently was travel a little bit more. Taking the opportunity on weekends to just go and travel locally, like if you're in Glasgow, to go to Edinburgh, that's only an hour bus ride away and less by train, I think is a really special opportunity that you might be busy with school, definitely get your schoolwork done, but also if you can squeeze in travel, it's better to do that, I think, consistently throughout the whole year instead of, waking up in May and saying, I wish I would have gone and traveled. If you can make those weekend trips, I think that can definitely be worth it. And my last tip, number 11, this is a bonus tip, but just be present in the moment. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that you're getting to do. It's such a blessing and gift, and I know it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of hard work and time to be able to get to study abroad. You're very busy as a student, and this is something I have to be reminded of personally, constantly. So I am actively working on this as well, but it's just to be present in the moment, soak it in, realizing that in a year at this time, don't stress about it of where you're gonna be, but you might not have the same opportunities as you do now. So the people you meet, the culture you're in, the food you get to eat, all of those things, being present in the moment, soaking it in, and just being thankful for where you're at right now. Being present is advice that I would give myself. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that these tips were helpful and useful for you. Like I said, I didn't want to make this video just for me to make this video, but because I know when I was studying abroad and looking into it, I wanted to find a compilation of these tips and things that I wish I really knew before when it came to logistics, but also advice and tips as well. So if you guys are interested in keeping up with my travels abroad in Scotland, and I also also just went to Paris, I went to London in January, then make sure to subscribe to this channel if you're interested in doing so. And otherwise, I will see you later, and I hope you have the best day ever. Bye!